Have you ever felt the weight of a truth pressing against your chest, begging to be released, yet your lips tremble at the thought of saying it? You rehearse the words silently, again and again. I want to break up, but they never find the air. Instead, you carry them inside like a secret storm, quiet on the outside but raging within. It doesn't begin with shouting or slammed doors. It begins with absence, a fading spark. The conversations that once flowed like rivers now trickle into silence. The laughter you used to share echoes faintly, like a song you can't remember the words to anymore. You look across the table at someone who feels more like a memory than a partner, and a part of you aches, not from anger, but from truth. The hardest part isn't admitting it to them. It's admitting it to yourself, that you no longer belong where you once planted your heart, that staying has become heavier than leaving. And in that realization lies both grief and freedom. In today's journey, we'll step into this sacred threshold, the moment you stop pretending everything is fine and start honoring the quiet whisper within you. You'll see why breaking up is not always a failure, but sometimes the bravest act of love for yourself and for the other. You'll discover how endings can be doorways, how release can be rebirth, and how goodbye is often the first step toward coming home to yourself. So if you've ever sat in silence, holding words too heavy to speak, stay with me. This part of the story is yours too. There is always a moment. It doesn't arrive with fireworks or dramatic confessions. It slips in quietly, like a shadow across the heart. You're sitting together, maybe watching something on TV, maybe sharing dinner, and suddenly you feel it. You're not really here anymore. Your body is present, but your soul has already begun to drift. You notice the little things first. The way your laughter feels forced. The way conversations leave you emptier instead of fuller. The way their touch no longer feels like home, but like an echo of what it used to mean. It's not that they've done something unforgivable. It's not even that you don't care. It's that the version of you who once belonged in this love has quietly outgrown it. And that truth is terrifying, because endings aren't always born out of anger or betrayal. Sometimes they are born out of stillness, out of the realization that love, once vibrant and alive, has become a place you can no longer breathe. In that instant, you stop asking, "Can I fix this?" and start whispering, "Am I allowed to leave?" The answer, though heavy, is sacred. Yes, you are allowed. Because love is not meant to be a cage. It is meant to be a mirror of freedom, growth, and expansion. When it stops being that, it becomes a lesson. And lessons, when learned, are meant to be released. This realization doesn't make you cold. It makes you honest. Honest with yourself, and soon, honest with them. For the first time, you begin to see that "I want to break up" is not cruelty. It is clarity, not betrayal, but remembrance of who you are and who you are still becoming. Before the words ever leave your lips, they live inside you as silence. Heavy, unspoken. You wake up next to them, share coffee, go about your day, and yet this unspoken truth sits between you like a wall neither of you names. You smile when expected, not at the right times, but deep down you feel it. You're pretending. Silence is its own kind of ache. It gnaws at you when they ask, "Are you okay?" And you answer, "I'm fine." It lingers when they make plans for the future, and your chest tightens because you know you don't see yourself there anymore. It's in the way your phone lights up with their name, and instead of excitement, you feel exhaustion. This silence is not peace. It is pressure. Every day you carry it. You trade a piece of your authenticity for the comfort of avoiding conflict. But the longer you hold it in, the heavier it becomes. Because the soul always knows when it's not being true. And here's the paradox. You keep quiet because you don't want to hurt them. You bite your tongue because you don't want to break their heart. But in doing so, you slowly break your own. Silence was never meant to be a home. It was meant to be a pause, a breath before truth. And truth, no matter how painful, always carries freedom. When you finally say the words, "I want to break up," it won't be an act of cruelty. It will be the release of a silence that was suffocating you both. It doesn't happen all at once. There isn't always a single fight, a final straw, or a dramatic explosion. More often, it's a series of quiet moments that slowly stack up until one day you realize you can't keep carrying this anymore. Maybe it's the 10th time you felt unheard in a conversation. Maybe it's the 100th time you gave more than you received. Or maybe it's something even softer. The way your body sighs in relief when they leave the room. The way you find yourself craving solitude more than their presence. These are the whispers of your soul, and together they form a truth too loud to ignore. The breaking point is not always anger. Sometimes it's exhaustion. Sometimes it's the sudden clarity that you deserve a love that doesn't feel like survival, but like home. You realize that love should not drain you just to keep existing. That staying is not the same as loving. That holding on is not the same as growing. And so, the breaking point arrives quietly, like a dawn you didn't see coming. You wake up and you know, I can't do this anymore. Not because you hate them, not because the memories mean nothing, but because you finally see that clinging to what no longer fits is its own kind of loss. And in that moment, the scariest thought becomes the most liberating. Letting go might hurt, but staying will hurt more. This is where endings are born, not out of cruelty, but out of courage. The moment of truth is never easy. Your chest feels heavy, your hands tremble, and your throat tightens around the words you've rehearsed in silence for weeks. I want to break up. It feels impossible, almost cruel, to look into the eyes of someone you once dreamed a lifetime with and admit that dream has shifted. You fear their reaction, the hurt, the confusion, maybe even the anger. But what terrifies you most is the silence that follows, that sacred space after the words leave your lips, and there is no taking them back. Yet courage was never about being fearless. It has always been about telling the truth despite the fear, about honoring your soul even when your voice shakes. Because what's at stake is not just the relationship, it's your authenticity, your growth, your right to live a life aligned with your heart. When you finally say it, you realize the power isn't in the words themselves, but in the honesty behind them. For the first time in a long time, you are choosing truth over comfort, clarity over pretending. And that choice, though painful, is sacred. They may cry, they may beg, they may go silent, or they may nod, knowing deep down they felt it too. But no matter how they respond, you'll know you did not betray yourself. Breaking up isn't about giving up. It's about giving both of you a chance at a love that feels alive again. And sometimes, the bravest goodbye is the one that sets two souls free. After the words are spoken, the world feels strangely quiet. You expect the ground to split beneath you, but instead, there is stillness. The relationship doesn't end with a bang, it ends with a pause. A pause that feels both foreign and familiar, like the first deep breath after being underwater too long. At first, the silence feels heavy. The air between you is thick with everything unsaid, with the history you've shared, with the weight of a love that once was. They may ask why, or they may simply sit in disbelief. And you, even in your clarity, still feel the sting. Because breaking up doesn't erase the love that existed. It doesn't erase the moments that made you stay. It only acknowledges that love alone is not enough anymore. Then comes the aftershock, the wave of emotions you didn't expect. Relief tangled with grief. Freedom tied to guilt. You replay their expression, their voice, their silence, wondering if you could have said it differently, wondering if you could have spared them pain. But the truth is, there is no gentle way to break someone's heart. What you can do, though, is hold steady in your why. Remember that this choice wasn't made out of cruelty, but out of courage. That sometimes the most loving act is to let go. The aftershock is proof that you cared. Proof that endings are rarely clean, but always necessary. And within that messy, aching aftermath, the first seeds of healing are quietly being planted for both of you. When the dust begins to settle, what lingers most is not the words spoken, but the absence that follows. The empty chair at the table, the silence in the car where music once played, the quiet phone no longer lighting up with their name. It's not just the loss of a person, it's the sudden vacancy of a rhythm you had grown used to. At first, this space feels unbearable. You reach for your phone out of habit, only to remember there's no one to text. You walk past familiar places, and memories rise like ghosts, reminding you of laughter that no longer belongs to the present. Loneliness sits beside you, heavy and undeniable. But over time, the empty space begins to shift. What once felt like loss slowly transforms into possibility. The silence that once stung begins to soften into peace. The absence that once felt like punishment begins to reveal itself as room. Room for breath, room for clarity, room for becoming. Because endings are never just endings. They are also beginnings. That empty space is not a void to be feared. It is fertile ground for a new chapter. It is where you will rediscover yourself outside of the relationship, outside of the role you played, outside of the patterns that kept you small. And though the ache doesn't vanish overnight, each day the space feels less like a wound and more like an opening. An opening for growth, an opening for freedom, an opening for you. After the goodbye, the world doesn't just reflect their absence, it reflects you back to yourself. Suddenly, you're face to face with all the parts of you that were hidden beneath the relationship, the dreams you postponed, the needs you silenced, the truths you softened just to keep the peace. It's confronting, because when love ends, it leaves behind a mirror. And in that mirror, you see not only what was lost, but also what you gave away. You remember the times you stayed quiet when your soul longed to speak. The times you accepted less than you deserved because you were afraid to ask for more. The ways you shaped yourself to fit into a story that was no longer yours. But slowly, the mirror shifts from judgment to revelation. You begin to see not what was wrong with you, but what was right with you all along. That your longing for more wasn't greed, it was guidance. That your breaking point wasn't weakness, it was wisdom. That your choice to leave wasn't abandonment, it was alignment. This is where healing begins. Not in rushing to fill the space with someone new, not in burying the pain under distractions, but in sitting with the mirror and letting it teach you. Because every breakup carries a gift, the chance to come home to yourself. And when you finally meet your own reflection without flinching, you realize this ending was never just about losing them. It was about finding you. Healing doesn't arrive all at once. It's not a grand epiphany or a sudden burst of joy. It's slower, quieter, like learning how to walk again after forgetting the steps. At first, everything feels fragile. You make coffee in the morning and instinctively reach for an extra cup, only to remember there's no one else to drink it. You hear a song that once belonged to us, and for a moment, the weight of it knocks the breath out of you. But then, little by little, life begins to stitch itself back together. You laugh one day, genuinely, and realize it's the first time in weeks. You rediscover a hobby you once loved but had put aside. You take a walk, and instead of aching for who isn't beside you, you notice the way the sun feels on your skin. Small moments become victories, proof that you are learning to live again, not as part of a pair, but as yourself. Rebuilding isn't about forgetting them. It's about remembering you. It's about learning that your worth didn't leave when they did. It's about finding joy not in what you lost, but in what is still possible. Some days, grief will return. Some nights will still feel heavy. But healing is not a straight line, it's a spiral. And each time you circle back to the pain, you come with more strength, more clarity, more compassion for yourself. This slow rebuilding is not the end of love. It's the beginning of a deeper one. A love for your own life. A love for the version of you that chose courage over comfort, truth over illusion. The version of you that said, I want to break up, and meant it, not as an ending, but as a doorway. There comes a day, quiet, almost ordinary, when you wake up and realize you feel different. The heaviness that once sat on your chest has lifted. The silence that once felt unbearable now feels like peace. You look in the mirror and, for the first time in a long time, you recognize yourself again. This is the gift hidden inside the heartbreak, the return to self. In the space where the relationship once lived, you discover the parts of you that had been waiting, patient, and untouched. The spark of curiosity, the dreams you postponed, the joy that was never meant to be dependent on another person's presence. It doesn't mean you never loved them. It doesn't mean the memories fade. It means you finally understand that your life is not defined by who stands beside you, but by how fully you stand within yourself. The breakup, painful as it was, became a bridge back to your own soul. And now, you begin to create from this place. Not out of loneliness, but out of wholeness. You make choices that honor your truth. You set boundaries not as walls, but as declarations of self-respect. You carry yourself differently because you've lived through the breaking and discovered the power of rising. The return to self is not dramatic. It's not loud. It's steady, sacred, and undeniable. It is the quiet knowing that you are enough, that you always were. And as you step fully into this truth, you realize the breakup was never the ending of your story. It was the chapter that reminded you of your own beginning. In the end, saying I want to break up was never just about walking away from them. It was about walking back to yourself. What looked like loss was actually a reclamation. What felt like an ending was a quiet rebirth. Breaking up doesn't erase love, it reshapes it. It turns it inward, reminding you that the deepest connection you will ever have is with your own soul. And when you finally honor that bond, everything else in life begins to align with truth. This journey isn't about bitterness. It isn't about regret. It's about remembrance. Remembrance that love is not supposed to keep you small, but to help you grow. Remembrance that leaving is not failure, but courage. Remembrance that your worth is not measured by who stays, but by how deeply you stay with yourself. So if you find yourself whispering those words, I want to break up, know this: you are not breaking, you are becoming. You are not abandoning love, you are choosing the higher form of it. The kind that begins with self-respect, with authenticity, with freedom. And one day, when the ache softens into gratitude, you will look back and realize that this goodbye was sacred. It was the moment you stopped begging for love and started living as love. If this truth resonates with you, take a breath and affirm it out loud. I am allowed to choose myself. I am allowed to begin again. Because you are not just ending a chapter, you are writing the next one, with your own hand, in your own voice, guided by the quiet strength that was always within you.